Hello Africa, it is Wednesday, the 11th day of October 2017, a day in which Liberians are anxiously waiting to know who their next batch of leaders are going to be, including the man or woman who's going to succeed President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. We'll have all the latest from Monrovia. And tonight, of course, it has been a day of protest and rage in Togo as well as in Kenya, where NASA outfit, that is the opposition, is still holding anti-IEBC demonstrations. And in Togo, something interesting is happening. They are against the incumbent President Faure Gnassingbé. We'll have all the latest on those two developing stories. If you're just joining us, this is Bottomline Africa, right on KTN News. My name is Yusuf Ibrahim. Let's now go straight and look at Kenya's opposition NASA continues to press on with demands for changes within the IEBC, even as Jubilee MPs pass controversial electoral laws.
I think there have been two flashpoints.
Uganda's opposition leader, Dr. Kizza Besigye, weighs in on the Kenya's presidential polls standoff. Togolese government outlaws weekday protest against President Gnassingbé as the economy continues to suffer. And tonight we analyze why malaria remains the leading cause of death in post-independent Africa. Welcome once again, and to help us discuss that topic in studio, we have three individuals. We have Dr. Wako Ejersa, the head of Malaria Control Unit from the Ministry of Health. We also have Honorable Chachu Genya, the Member of Parliament from North Horr constituency. We also have Dr. Robert Bett, who is the Public Health Manager from the Kenya Red Cross. I'm sure you don't want to miss that interview. And on our Twitter poll tonight, we are asking you, do you support the electoral law changes passed by the Jubilee Party? Do you support the electoral law changes passed by the Jubilee Party? You can send us your feedback on Twitter, and always remember to use our hashtag, which is Bottomline Africa. And I'm going to go through some of your feedback within the program. Now, we begin from right here in Kenya, where police and, of course, once again engaged supporters of the opposition coalition, that is NASA, who are demonstrating against the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And police lobbed tear gas as the demonstrators, both in the capital, right in Nairobi, and the lakeside city of Kisumu. Now, opposition leader Raila Odinga said he was withdrawing from the presidential election race, citing the unwillingness of the Electoral Commission to agree to a series of demands before the rerun that was scheduled on the 26th of October. He said he will be willing to take part in later vote if his demands, the demand made by NASA, were met. He called on his supporters to continue with their protest, calling for these reforms.
And next week we are going to come from Monday to Monday. Yes, until these thieves, the two thieves, come out of the office.
Reforms, no reforms. Wakiapisha, wakiapisha. Nawaambia wajinga wamerevuka na mujinga akierevuka. Uhuru Kenyatta, your days are numbered, my friend. My friend, your days are numbered.
I want to announce the Kenyan people, there is a human bombshell coming. There is a tsunami coming. There is a hurricane coming. And nobody can stop this hurricane.
Meanwhile, lawmakers from the ruling Jubilee Party have passed a bill to change how future elections are managed ahead of the 26th of October presidential rerun. Opposition MPs had boycotted committee sittings to debate the proposed changes. The bill does not become law until the president signs it. And some of the amendments provide that anyone challenging an election results in future will have to prove if any irregularities will have altered the outcome. It also lowers the bar set for someone to be appointed as the chairman of the Electoral Commission. Critics say this may be a way of replacing the current chairperson with someone friendly to the ruling party.
So I'll put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Election Laws Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 39 of 2017, and its approval thereof with amendments. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Any as of our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Now, for Kenya's private sector, from small shops to large investors, elections are bad news. Now, many weeks of court disputes and street protests have been particularly bad for business. Here are some of the thoughts from the Kenyan business community. Listen.
We haven't experienced massive cancellations during the first election, which was on the 8th, which happened to be right in the middle of a very, very busy period. So that, came and passed and went on very well in terms of business. We didn't have any issues. Obviously, we didn't expect this, a rerun. But so far, so calm.
Have the prolonged political uncertainty on the back of these two elections that, of course, prompts the private sector, mainly the manufacturers, to adopt a bit of a wait-and-see approach, stand back, not hire, not build up inventories. In the near term, in the short term, of course, GDP growth and economic activity on the back of the second election will be the sacrificial lamb or the shock absorber, if you like. Sectors that we're currently seeing that are impacted are not just the industrial sector, but also the agriculture sector. In the near term, what we're going to see is a lot more job losses.
Let's now cross over to some development in Togo, where the government has banned weekday protest in that country. Since August, the opposition has been holding big demonstrations against President Faure Gnassingbé and to demand political reforms. Home Affairs Minister Payadoa Bukpesi made the announcement along with a senior security official on Tuesday. They stated there have been, quote-unquote, calls for violence and civil disobedience in that country, including attacks on security forces during opposition demonstrations. Now, they've said in future demonstrations will not be allowed on the streets, only rallies in a specific place. President Gnassingbé has been in power since the year 2005. He took office after the death of his father, Gnassingbé Eyadema, who had been at the helm for 38 years. Protesters are calling for the end of what they've termed as Gnassingbé's dynasty.
Il faut dire qu'aujourd'hui, nous autres jeunes entrepreneurs,
for young entrepreneurs such as us, the internet is a tool that we use often in order to sell our products and market our products. Today, the internet has been shut down, and it's not the first time. It was also shut down last week. It's really deplorable. It has led to serious consequences on our business.
Il faut dire que c'est vraiment... On a fait ce slogan de Faure must go pour demander que...
We created the slogan Faure must go to demand the removal of Faure Gnassingbé because his diplomacy has reached its limits in Togo since the 90s.
On ne veut plus aujourd'hui. Nous avons donné le temps 80.
L'impact sur l'économie. Quand vous regardez l'évaluation.
There has been an impact on the economy. When you look at the recent evaluation by the Togo Revenue Authority, the 2 days of protest led to losses of around 2.5 billion CFA, equivalent to 27 million USD. And there was a drop in movement of trucks at the port. It's something that's worrying. It's very worrying.
C'est quelque chose qui inquiète.
Now, the world today marked the International Day of the Girl Child. Here in Kenya, a low-key event was marked in Nakuru County, and it was noted that most girls lose track in achieving their dreams, the adolescent stage, during which they are exposed to situations that feature them as inferior in the society. Now, the First Lady who attended that event pointed out that there was need to invest more in ensuring that girls have equal opportunity as their male counterparts to effectively battle with the current gender inequalities. A survey by the county department in charge of children has shown that despite the existence of gender laws, girls are still victims of gender-based violence, which starts at girlhood and escalates into their womanhood. Victimization of members of the female gender from their tender age is the major contributor to the current gender imbalances in the country's leadership and different professions in which women who have ventured in have shown great success.
The approach now we are taking, because every day prosecuting a case of a 9-year-old who has been defiled, a 9-year-old who has been beaten, even by the parents, it's agonizing enough. It is a preventative measure whereby we tell them, this is happening, this is wrong. This is happening, whoever is found, This is the term they will serve in prison. Encouraging the teachers, invite us to the school.
Over to some developments in Ethiopia. I believe it is the second most populous country in Africa. Ethiopia will devalue its currency, well known as the birr, by 15% in a bid to boost exports. Now, income from exports had fallen in recent years because of low global commodities prices, contributing to a shortage of foreign exchange in that country. Now, London-based capital economics researcher John Ashburn says the devaluation will raise the cost of key imports like fuel and machinery, but will give agricultural exports, including coffee and cut flowers, an edge over East African competitors. Over to South Africa now, where storm and torrential rains hit Johannesburg and east of South Africa on Tuesday, triggering flash floods that left people and cars stranded in streets submerged by water. We're going to get those pictures shortly. And videos released on the internet by Rescue Care Tuesday showed houses and cars, some submerged up to their roofs, trapped in flood water in eastern coastal city of Durban. According to the local media reports, the city officials have urged residents to stay indoors during the storm as wind blast reached up to 70 km/h. Now, to the youngest nation in the continent, in South Sudan is now set to host its first ever oil and power conference that seeks to bring together players from the rich oil country as well as other international investors seeking to get part of the oil pipe in the country. This has also attracted a lot of interest from Kenyan companies who are now setting base in Juba, that is the capital of South Sudan. And with security issues dampening growth in South Sudan, Kenyan insurance companies are ready to provide cover for investors in the oil and gas sector. High hopes for the fledgling oil sector of the world's youngest nation evaporated when conflict erupted, forcing oil farms to shut in crude and cutting production to 130,000 barrels per day. The country has sub-Saharan Africa's third largest reserves and is the only mature oil producer in East Africa. But it is embroiled in a war that has forced a third of its population to flee, creating Africa's biggest refugee crisis since the Rwandan genocide.
This presents to us is a very good opportunity in terms of growth in the future. The last international conference that was held here was held back in 2013, 2 weeks before the crisis. This is the only international conference to happen, and specifically so because it related to oil and gas. The last couple of months, you've seen the government reinforce security to ensure that the oil fields are operational again. Now, by bringing in the oil and gas conference here, it gives the opportunity for operators who are not in the market, right, to get to hear from the government the commitments that they're making to ensure that further exploration and operations can resume back.
Well, if you're just joining us, this is Bottomline Africa. We're bringing you all the latest news across the continent. Remember, tonight we have that exclusive interview with Uganda's main opposition leader, Kizza Besigye. Has been interviewed by Solomon Serewanja. We're going to bring you that shortly. And remember, tonight we're going to analyze why malaria remains the leading cause of death in post-independent Africa. We have our experts in studio, including a member of parliament, that is Honorable Chachugenya from North Hor. We also have Dr. Wako Ejersa, who's the head of Malaria Control Unit from the Ministry of Health. We also have Dr. Robert Bett, who is the Public Health Manager from the Kenya Red Cross. We'll have that conversation, including that interview with Kizza Besigye. Is going to touch, I'm sure, about Kenyan political situation after that latest development yesterday after NASA's presidential leader, or presidential, actually he is NASA's leader. He ceases to be a presidential candidate. That is Raila Odinga. I'm sure he's going to touch on that. It's an interview that you don't want to miss, and we'll be right back after this very short break. Don't go too far. We'll be right back.